Sales Live. I'm your host, Joe Beck, founder of The Sales Activist and host of the Impact Sales podcast. Impact Sales Live was created to shine a spotlight on the best practices and tips that will help you stand out from the crowd in regards to sales. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a coach, or a consultant, or a sales professional selling for a company, you'll get a lot of value and impact from Impact Sales Live. I'll be hosting Impact Sales Live every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you block off your calendar and start off your week the right way right here. Impact Sales Live today is sponsored by our premier sponsor, Podcast Easy. Podcast Easy is your go-to source for all things podcasting. You just speak and their team will take care of the rest. We used Podcast Easy to help us create and launch the Impact Sales podcast, and we are so completely thrilled with the results. To learn more about Podcast Easy, check out the link that I'm going to drop in the chat in just a moment. So let's get started. To kick things off, I want to offer up a quick explanation about Impact Sales Live. You'll never know exactly what might happen here or who will be on. Plan on seeing some guests coming in the upcoming weeks, sharing sales stories and successes. Most importantly, we'll be making sure that you get all the valuable insights and information that you need so you can put these things into action for your businesses. So today, we're going to talk about a pretty important topic, and it's power positioning yourself for the most success you can create in that first appointment or first call, depending upon how you may sell. So let's start a little bit talking about power positioning. Now, a lot of people describe power positioning a certain way. Some people will say it's all about positioning your prospect for a really good understanding of what it is that you do, or a great understanding of specifically your background, or other accomplishments that you may have, success stories that you have, and all of those things encompass power positioning. They really play a role in all of the elements of power positioning. How I look at power positioning is a little unique. It really starts long before you ever have the appointment, long before you ever maybe even schedule the appointment. See, nowadays, especially with the advent of social media and the visibility that people have on who you are and what you do and the type of services that you provide, so much of that information is already out there. It's information that is probably readily available if somebody invests a little bit of time to learn about you and your business. So I think the best way of going forward and power positioning yourself is to make full use of those things and let them work to your advantage. Make sure that before your call or appointment with your prospects, that they have at least seen these things. Now, I'm not saying you blast them with information and you inundate them with stuff that they may not be interested in. But if you're unsure if they know certain things about you and those things are already out there, say, for example, on your LinkedIn profile or on your Facebook company page or on your Instagram, your Twitter, whatever social media you're referring to, if that information is out there, put it in front of your prospects. Start the process of them getting to see that you're out there. See, as you all know, people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. Well, the first part is they need to know a little bit about you, who you are, and what you're all about. Well, if that information is already out there, if that information is on social media, or perhaps it's in an article that you wrote or had published, or maybe it's in a book that you wrote and had published. If that information is already out there, put it in front of your prospect. Get it there in advance of your call. Make sure they know a little bit about you. See, the way I grew up in selling, I was always taught that you don't go into a call without knowing a little bit about that person that you're talking to, whether it's their background, their business, what they're looking for or need. Even more so, as much information as you can find out is extremely beneficial for you. Well, it only stands to reason that that process should be the same for you when you're positioning yourself, in this case, power positioning yourself with your prospects. So to really set yourself up for the highest likelihood for success going into a call or a scheduled meeting or appointment that you have with a prospect, get them the information that you want them to know about you in advance. Don't assume that they already know it. They may, but don't assume that they do. I think there's a very easy and professional way to share information about you with people. Make sure that you're connected on a platform like a LinkedIn. Make sure they have access to your community pages on different social media outlets. Make sure that they have that information at their fingertips, at their disposal, to make it easy for them to do that work. See, it's not uncommon for people sometimes in today's busy day and age, and this may have happened to some of you, and I hope I'm not making anybody uncomfortable when I say this, that you go into scheduling something and all of a sudden that time gets a little closer to the actual scheduled appointment and you scramble trying to figure out who am I talking to? What are we talking about? What exactly is the purpose of this call? If you've ever gotten onto one of those calls where parties are questioning that or wondering that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It happens in today's day and age. You schedule a lot of appointments, people jump on your calendar link, they schedule an appointment, and there's not necessarily a great exchange of information in advance. So the first tip, and this one is one you want to definitely write down, to power position yourself, make sure you go into a call, whether it's a phone call or a scheduled appointment, whether it's virtual or in person, with that person knowing the information that you want them to know about you. And that can be done very casually. Here's, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, here's my LinkedIn profile. If you haven't had a chance to check out our website, here it is. Here's some additional information about me and my business. And I think just that little step, whether you realize it or not, sometimes paves the way for a smoother conversation, and in many cases, a more productive one. Sometimes people get into these calls or schedule these meetings and they don't really know a whole lot about you. And the reason why it's important that you get that stuff out there is not that you want to spend any time talking about you, but it's because of number two on my list today to cover. It's because you want to spend the majority of your time on that first call, on that first appointment, in that first appointment, talking about your prospects, talking about them, making it all about them. Now, I'm not saying there won't be an opportunity to talk about you. I'm not saying there won't be a chance to get into what it is that you offer and the things that it may do for them. And we will talk about that in a few minutes. But what I'm saying is, going in, you want to make sure you create the opportunity for yourself to make sure that they can have that little bit of research, the know part of you, pretty much almost out of the way as it relates to that call. Now, maybe they don't get a chance to review it and you have to go over it anyway. But if they want to do their due diligence, if they want to get a little sense of who you are and what you're about and learn about you, give them the opportunity to do it before the call. And that's so powerful in today's day and age when it's such a busy and hectic life. Appointment calendars are full, schedules are just crazy, and people are very, very distracted. So if you give them an opportunity, perhaps in a little bit of downtime, to learn a little bit more about you, they could come into that call feeling more prepared. And you'll find that you will, in return, feel more prepared because you're not going to feel like you have to change the process as it relates to having that conversation. Because sometimes people get into these calls and they think it's all about them. They think it's all about what they've done, what they've accomplished, meaning you. It really isn't. It's about your prospect. It's about what they're trying to accomplish, what their needs, wants, and desires are for themselves or for their business. It's about all about them. So anything you can do to head off you having to talk about those things related to you or yourself or your business is a good thing. And I'm saying that to selectively choose when and where you share that information. You want to take a very respectful tone in these calls, on these appointments, in these meetings, to allow that prospect the opportunity to speak first, speak often, and share what they can about their business, what they're looking for, and what they may need. Now, this is where it really starts to get interesting. This is where it starts to get exciting. And this is where the true masters of their craft really operate. It's not only just about getting them to start and tell you what's going on, it's to get them to the point that they start sharing what their needs are, to the point that you can quickly identify how you could help them, how you could address a need, solve a problem, create value, and have an impact. See, when you do all of that, literally as a follow-up on the things that they've already shared, you've already started to position yourself in a very powerful way. Now, some people may disagree with that. Some people may believe that, it's all about you coming in there and impressing them and wowing them and telling them all the great things that you can do. And I've shared this before on many platforms, in many posts, podcasts, events, and speaking engagements. And I'll tell you, nobody really cares specifically about what you say and what you do. What they really care about deep down, especially your prospects, is exactly what value you can provide for them and the impact it will have on their life. It's not that they're mean or insensitive. It's not any of those things. I'm sure they care. It's just that as it relates to their business and their decision making, they're more concerned about the value you bring and the impact it'll have on their life. So why not embrace that? Why not fully get behind that? Just believe that in your heart of hearts and go, I'm going to embrace this 100%. I'm going to lead with what's going on with them. I'm going to learn about them. I'm going to develop a relationship. Nobody wants to sit down for coffee or have a meeting with somebody who only wants to talk about themselves, right? If you've ever been in one of those situations, you sit down with a friend or an associate, and all they do is talk about themselves over and over and over again. They talk about what's going on in their life, in their business, what's right, wrong, what otherwise. They give you the whole story. And the problem is, when you're in that type of a situation and there's no interaction, it's very, very difficult to feel engaged. So, thinking as your prospect may think, you want to avoid doing that to them at all costs. You want to encourage them to start the process, engage you talking about what's going on in their business, and question when necessary your prospect when they bring up things that might be of interest to you. Make sure you're asking pointed and specific questions related to the things that they share. You always want to lead with value. And here's the thing that I go back to over and over again, and I remind people of this, and it just reinforces what I just said. One of the most valuable things that people have to offer is typically how they view things, what they share, and what something may mean to them, right? Well, when you're talking to somebody else, one of the most valuable things in their mind will be what they're sharing, what they may be telling you about their business. It's important to them. It's personal. It's very, very close to them. So you might as well embrace that. You might as well prioritize that as being the most valuable thing, well above what you do, well above you personally and what you offer and the products or services that you could give them. You're going to talk about specifically what it is that's important to them. So the easiest way of figuring that out is to let them steer for a while, let them kind of share things with you. So you want to lead with the value of describing a little bit about them talking to you about what's going on, what their needs may be, and then asking specific questions, asking them about, how has that impacted you? What does your business look like as a result of that? Or is that impacting you personally in addition to professionally? Just kind of keep the conversation going. And the reason is you want them to recognize, and you want to position yourself, and this falls under power positioning as well, is you want to position yourself as somebody that actually listens to what's being said. And in addition to just listening, you're taking notes, you're active listening, you're nodding, you're acknowledging what they're saying. And when necessary, you're questioning or engaging them to prove that you're truly on the same page with them, that you're listening to what they're sharing, that you're on the same page with understanding how important certain things are. You become a resource to people when they truly know that you're on their side, when they know that you've got their back and whatever it is that they're doing. Well, now you're a resource to them. You're somebody that's on their team. You have developed that power positioning skill of making them aware that you're there for them. Okay. Now, this has nothing to do with your background. It has nothing to do with specifically your skills or qualifications or any of those things. It's absolutely all about making them feel that you're there for them and then guiding them through a process of sharing with you more about what's most important to them and then figuring out how you can help them get what they're looking for. See, ultimately, you want to become a resource to your clients. You want to position yourself as somebody that can do that. Well, here's why power positioning, especially in those early calls or appointments, is so critical to your success. If you don't listen to what they're sharing, truly acknowledge through active listening that you're paying attention to what means something to them, and then ask them qualifying questions and validate some of the things that they're saying, they may never let you get close enough to position yourself in a way that will benefit you. So you really need to make sure that you do that. It's the first step in not only power positioning, but it's also the first step in the process of creating a true servant mentality leadership approach to your business relationship with them. See, you want to truly be a servant to what their needs are. Now, I say that in a professional way, whereas people know and can rely on you to deliver on what it is that they need. And along the way, you're going to get your chance to talk about how you do it. See, it's first going to have to be about what it is that's going on with them, what their life looks like, what their business looks like. There first has to be a truly accurate and descriptive discovery process. And some people call them a discovery call or a strategy session or whatever it is. But somewhere along the way, you've got to do a discovery of what the situation is, what their needs may be if you don't clearly already know them. And you need to figure out how you may be able to help them. Well, unless they tell you certain things, you're never going to know that. So the key is making them realize that you're there for them. You prioritize them, you listen to them, and you take into consideration everything that they've shared. And it really becomes a skill. It really becomes something that is really just really an advanced weapon in your arsenal when you really become good at active listening and asking the right questions at the right time. I talk a lot about that in the Impact Sales podcast, and I share a lot of information about that on social media because I just believe that, the information isn't enough. It's knowing what to do with the information and how to handle it that makes the difference. Just like we talk about knowledge being power, it's not. It's applied knowledge, something that you take and put into action and use for the purpose of something that's powerful. It's just not the knowledge. So it's important that when you're talking to people about positioning in a sales call or a sales appointment, that you start with what's important to them, what they try to accomplish. Now, along the way, you may have the opportunity to break things down and educate them a little bit and not lose a lot of steam off of them sharing information, like maybe offer up some feedback on something like, it's interesting you said that. I just read an article where a number of people have expressed that in many instances in business, they go into these meetings unprepared. They go into appointments because they have such a crazy hectic lifestyle where they aren't fully prepared to have the meeting. It just happens more often than not. Just as an example of a type of question, you're validating something in the eyes of your prospect. See, your prospect then knows you're paying attention. They know you're still on point, and you're trying to educate as well through the process. You're trying to share some information that might make things better. One of the things that I think is so important is that along the way that you give to your prospects and your clients. And that might be in the way of free information. It might be sharing insights, feedback, perspectives, things like that. But it's important that they see you doing that because it's an important element of power positioning. You put yourself in a position where you have now not only heard what they're about, taken their information, understand their situation, and truly understand where they are, but now you're providing additional value. You're sharing insights through that process. It doesn't mean you have to stop with them sharing. It just means that there's an opportunity perhaps to educate. So another important element, and this can happen on a phone call, it can happen in an appointment or on an appointment, both virtually and in person. It can be when you truly, at some point in the process, have earned the right to start talking about yourself. And it's like a turning point in the conversation. See, I just believe that the right thing to do in any of those interactions is to get to know the person, understand what their concerns are, their needs are, their wants for their business. And before you ever get into what you do, earn the right to actually talk about what you do. Now, part of the reason why it's so powerful to share a little bit of information in advance of your calls, there's a couple of reasons. The first is if somebody is at all interested in what you do, they're probably going to take a closer look at the information you send them. It's going to accelerate the process. It's going to set the stage a little bit better because they would have already done some things. Pay close attention. Maybe they looked you up on LinkedIn. Check out your LinkedIn profile. Did they view your profile in advance of the appointment? These are little things that you could do to kind of figure out where that prospect stands. But the power positioning elements of it are so critical because if you've given that information and they've looked it over and they've done a little bit of research on you, some of that credibility, some of that earning is already done and out of the way. They now know you a little bit. You know, you've earned the right by listening. You've also earned the right by providing credibility before the call. And these steps are really, really important because with some prospects, you may only need to do one of those things well. Quite honestly, it might just be one thing and they go, I get it. You know, I like you. I'm on the same page with you. I think I can work with you. With other prospects, you might do 3, 4, or 5 things well to get them bought into wanting to work with you. So I like to stack the deck a little bit. I like to increase the odds. And I like to say, look, if we're going to get on a call like that, have you seen my LinkedIn profile or have you seen this? Take a look on my website. Now, sometimes they already have, but just in case you do it, because when it comes time to the call actually happening, like I've said up to this point, it's all about them. Now, when that tide turns and when that turning point occurs, and that's what we call the turning point, it literally is when you now have earned the right to start talking about you, start literally discussing what it is that you do and how it may benefit them. When you get to that point, you want to make sure that you continue down the path you've already started. So what I mean by that is this. That's not the point that you start selling. That's not the point that you start pitching product. That's not the point that you start offering solutions. You're not there yet. Okay? It's your opportunity to describe a little bit about you and to do what I call connect the dots with what they've already shared. See, if your prospect, because you positioned it in a way for them to talk to you first and share information about what it is that they're doing or what they're looking for, if your prospect has shared information and it's information that's relevant to the type of work that you do or the product you offer, it's very easy to connect the dots. It's very easy to say, you know, I do this and I work with companies just like your company, the type of people that are challenged by the things that you just described that you're challenged by. See, it makes it very, very easy to connect the dots and it becomes a point of credibility. It becomes a point of, I'm talking to somebody who is professional. They scheduled a meeting or we scheduled a meeting. They shared information with me up front. They listened to me. They made it about me first. They didn't just start selling me, pitching to me, right? They've earned that right. See, now it's the point where you're going to try to get them to like you a little bit, right? They've gotten to know you a little bit. Now they're going to get to like you a little bit. And they're going to get to like you because not because of you, but because you're going to connect the dots on things that they need or want. Again, not to be insensitive and not to burst anybody's ego, but they may like you just to like you, but will they like you enough to do business with you? Not unless you connect the dots. And the reason I say that is because sometimes in many instances, people would say, you know what? I shared with you everything that's going on and I like what you've offered, but we're not ready. Or I'm not sure your solution is the best solution, right? Well, a lot of times that comes up because somebody didn't connect the dots. I like to break things down in plain English, right? Connect the dots. It's a technical term, but the reason why we do it that way is because we want to be very, very clear. They've described for you a situation, a problem, a want, a need. And you may have a whole bunch of different solutions for them. You may have the answer to their prayers related to the needs that they have in their business. But sometimes for many prospects, they miss the opportunity to connect the dots. It doesn't necessarily happen. Now, it's not right and it's more ineffective to try to connect those dots when you're proposing the solution. And some people may disagree with that, but I believe it's more of a nuance to say to somebody, you know, I work with coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs, people that literally do the same things that you do or work like you. That connects the dots. That makes them listen a little clear. Their ears perk up and they go, oh, okay, so you can do some of these things. Great. See, now they're going to start liking what you're saying a little bit more because they believe that you may have some solutions, some answers to their problems. Thank you, Peter. You're right. For the pain points. Absolutely. If they believe that you have the opportunity, some solutions to their wants, needs, and problems where you can fix the pain, they're going to pay attention a little bit more. Now, why is that so critical? And this is where some people get lost in selling. They think that it's all about pain, solution, right? It's not quite as simple. It is in many cases. For some cases, and I don't want to say that won't work. Sometimes it will. Sometimes people say, I got this going on and you do this. I want to work with you. Straightforward. But in most cases, people need more education. They need more comfort. They need to know that you're the right fit, that you're the right solution, that you are the subject matter expert or the ideal solution for them, that there isn't anybody else that gets them better than you that can solve their problem. Now, why else is that important? And this goes back to the whole topic for today. How do you get them positioned to close sooner? Sometimes as soon as the first call. It's by doing these things step by step, not skipping any steps, not skipping ahead. Will you get some skipping ahead? Sure. Some clients will sign and become a client, just one thing, and they may go, that's it. I don't want to move forward. And that may work. But the fact is, your odds go up infinitely if you follow things step by step the way I'm describing. So connect the dots. Now, why is that so important? Well, if you do something very comprehensive for your clients, or you provide a product or a service or an offering that does multiple things, you cannot assume that your client will understand and get that you do all those things. You may miss something later on. It's not uncommon sometimes, even the delivery of a product or a service that you understand well, that sometimes you miss highlighting a relevant point of interest, a relevant pain point in the solution. So the reason why I say connect the dots is because it becomes something that's fresh in their mind and something that's fresh in yours. So if by some chance in that first appointment, that first call or meeting, you have an opportunity to get to the point that you show them the solution and they can make a buying decision. If you connect the dots, it's a much more comfortable process. There isn't any uncomfortable feeling over them making a decision. The close becomes a lot easier because they've come along through the journey. They've gotten past knowing you. They've started to like you, and they start to like you because you listen to them. Let's call it what it is, right? They may like you personally. You may have a great personality, great communicator. There might be a synergy there, but do they like you enough to do business with you? That's what's important. So that no like and trust, the like has to be enough to do business with you. It's kind of incomplete. I like a lot of people. It doesn't mean I want to do business with them. And I know some of you feel the same way. So the point is, when you say like, it has to be like enough to want to be willing to work with you. So the easiest way, connect the dots, draw parallels to the things that they've offered, that they've shared, and match it up with things that you can do. Now, you're not describing how yet. That's in the proposal. That's when you're actually going to show them specifically what you do. You're just describing and highlighting that you can do it. You're highlighting what you would do, but not how you would do it. Okay. So that's important, connecting the dots. Now, I want to make sure I shared this along the way because it's been scrolling across the bottom, but I want to highlight this. If you're looking for additional great content, or if you want to get some help with what's going on with sales in your business, you can reach out to me anytime by texting the word sales to the number 321-421-5213. That's sales to the number 321-421-5213. It'll land you on my digital business card. You can check out all of my social media, as well as the social media for the Sales Activist brand. And you can even schedule a complimentary strategy session to talk about what's going on with sales in your business. And you're going to see exactly what I'm just talking about today. We'd get on a call, we'd go through these things. I'd listen to what's going on with you. We'd start to connect the dots. And then, and only then, will we get into the next part that we're going to talk about the rest of today. And that's literally making sure that you start to communicate things that are relevant to the issues that your prospect or client has brought up, things that directly connect to the things that are important to them. Why was connecting the dots so important? Because it just set a reminder in their brain and your brain as to what's important. You said you had these 3 particular problems, and I've just explained we could address this. We provide services in this area as well. Oh, and we can definitely handle this for you. And all you're doing is just connecting the dots, creating the opportunity, and you're really drawing them in to want to hear more. Okay. So, what's the next step in that process? Well, here it's really, really important that we take a check of where we are in the process. We've listened to exactly what's going on with them, what their situation is, what their biggest concerns or needs are. We've connected the dots by highlighting things that we could particularly help them with, and highlight as many as you can. Connect as many dots as you can. I mean, fill them all in if you can, because the more you can show them, the more interest level they'll be, the more they'll like you enough that they'll be willing to work with you. So make sure that you do that, because once you get into the next phase of that call or appointment, it's all about earning, truly earning the right to do business with them and to win over the trust component. See, you've started building credibility right from the beginning of the process. You have, whether it's by the information you share with them in advance, whether it's by the way you handle the initial call, by listening to them, active listening, paying attention to the things that they've said, only interacting and asking questions when you needed clarifications, and most importantly, when you connected the dots. So you started to earn some trust, but now you're really going to earn some trust. So how do you do that? Well, I'm going to tell you the one thing that I believe is one of the most impactful things that you can share with somebody during your first call to earn their trust. And that is simply this: share with them specifically that they will get no pressure from you on making a decision. And the best way of going about doing that is by being very casual about it and being straightforward about your intentions. And it could be something like this: I would love the opportunity to work with you. And before I get into the different things specifically that we do, I want to make sure I explain something to you. Okay. I get paid in a couple of different ways. One is if we work together, I would earn some money that way. And I also get paid in the form of referrals. But before we get to any of those things, I want to just explain to you that whether or not we do or don't ever work together, it isn't going to change my business. I'm going to continue to operate. We're going to continue to do the things we're doing, helping people solve these exact problems, a lot of the problems that you've expressed that you have in your own business. I'm going to go down the road. I'm going to work with people down there. I'm going to go across town, going to work with probably people in your same industry. The fact is, we're going to help a lot of people. But I share that with you so that you know that it's not going to change my business one bit if we don't work together. I want to work with you, but I don't need to work with you. And the reason why you share that is because of the very next phrase. The next phrase that you're going to share is, but working with me and my company could have a huge impact on your success. And this is where connecting those dots comes in, because I know we can solve this problem, this problem, this problem, and this problem for you. Now, what the trained ear has heard, what the prospect has heard you say is that you want to work with them, but you don't need to work with them. So that expresses confidence. It expresses that there's no pressure coming their way. That wall of insecurity, because everybody, whether you know this or not, everybody has a wall of insecurity when they're around somebody who's selling. That wall of insecurity goes up and it protects them from the person on the other side of the wall. Well, when they start feeling comfortable, when they start believing, knowing, liking, and trusting the person, imagine bricks coming out of the wall and the wall going lower and lower and lower down. to the point that they can see that person face to face. They have the opportunity to clearly hear and see that person. See, when that wall's down low, there's a high likelihood that they're willing to work with you. So by telling them that they'll get no pressure from you and that whether or not you will or won't work with them isn't going to change your business one bit, they assume that there won't be any pressure, because there won't be. And you'll be in a position where you are perceived differently than other people. Why? Because 9 people out of 10 don't say that. 9 people out of 10 literally jump right into, well, let me talk about exactly what I can do to solve those problems for you. We offer this, this, this. They start shotgunning different things at people. And unfortunately, here's where the wall still is. It's not down here yet. See, the reason why that's so powerful is because it really is a nurturing process where you're nurturing them along through the conversation, through the decision makers, through knowing, liking, and trusting you, to get to a place they're comfortable believing that you can be the person to solve their needs. But if you don't ask at the right time, if you don't do it the right way, that wall stays up there. And you can remember the wall. And you're welcome, Jane. Absolutely. Remember the wall. It's one of those things that stuck with me. It's one of the very first sales lessons I learned 33 some odd years ago. People used to say, just if you keep that wall in mind, when are you asking? If the wall's up here, you asked at the wrong time. The wall's down here, you asked at the right time. So when I say that to people, it's not because I don't want to work with them. I do want to work with them. I tell them that. It's not because I'm trying to play some Jedi mind trick on them about wanting to work with me. No, it's about being simple and honest in how I set the expectations. And that's what the second part of the call is about. See, expectations. You want to make sure you set clear expectations. It starts with saying, if we're not going to work together, that's okay. It's not going to change my business. But this could have a profound effect on yours. It could have a huge impact. If we solve those 4 problems, it would be big for your business. See, you start earning respect that way. You're being very straightforward. You're being respectful of them, and you're basically telling them that they don't have to worry about you because you're going to not pressure them the way other people may pressure them. See, the fact is, most people have had some degree of somebody along the way who's maybe pressured them or made them feel uncomfortable about a buying decision that they were making. So the easiest way to differentiate yourself and stand out is to say something that other people won't say. Completely counterintuitive. I know. It doesn't make any sense to say, if we don't work together, we don't work together. I'll just go down the street and I'll work with somebody else. And, but what do you think that does for your prospect? I'll tell you what it does. It expresses to them in loud, no uncertain terms that you're confident. It tells them clearly that you're successful, and it positions you in a powerful way because you don't reek of desperation. You don't come off in a way that is desperate to win their business. You want their business. You don't need their business. Okay. And again, you don't say it in a way that comes off as arrogant, but you do say it in a way that's genuine because you set the right expectation right out of the gate. See, it all goes back to something I've shared in previous lives, and I share it on the Impact Sales podcast all the time. It's about, you want to earn the status of being a trusted advisor to them. See, nowhere along the way does the word trusted advisor have to be into a particular title or job description. Okay. A trusted advisor is anybody that helps them in the development of what their needs are. So that might be you in providing your product, your service, your offering to them. You've earned trusted advisor status. It might be somebody you've worked with before and you've earned their trust because you've worked with them great before. It may be somebody who has followed you for a really long time, followed you on social media, listened to your posts, read your articles, saw you on YouTube, however they found you, right? It may be somebody that has started to trust you because things that you're saying are just resonating for them over and over again. And power positioning is all about leveraging that, getting the most out of that, and not doing anything to shoot yourself in the foot. See, a lot of times, and I've seen this happen many, many times, people with great public profiles, phenomenal followers, and they're an influencer and they do this, they do this, they do this. All these things are great. And then they get into a situation where they have the opportunity to prove how good they are perceived. And for whatever reason, they rub people the wrong way, right? Now, I'm not advocating changing who you are, but what I am saying is maybe put a little thought into earning the trusted advisor status by just approaching it straightforward, just being, look, it's going to be about you. We're going to connect the dots. I'm going to set some expectations, and then we're going to talk about what I might be able to do to help you, right? It's a very straightforward approach. You want to clearly communicate exactly what they will receive by working with you. Studies have shown that salespeople in general, whether they're solopreneurs or consultants or entrepreneurs or salespeople for companies, studies have shown that as many as 50 to 60% of people interact with a prospect are not memorable. They don't stand out. They aren't different from other people. If they were to talk to 10 people that do what you do, you would sound like them. You just don't stand out. That's what happens with a lot of people, as many as 60%. How you turn the tables on that is to start doing things the way I'm describing them. Be unique, be different, but do those things in a way that reeks of confidence, that reeks of success, that puts yourself in a position where when you go to the point of asking them to do business with you, you've earned it. You've been straightforward about it. You've earned it. You've earned the right, and the timing's right. So you're going to clearly communicate exactly what they will receive by working with you. And here's the most important part of this sentence: exactly what the impact will be on them. See, I talk a lot about value and impact. Value is what they get by working with you. Impact is how they feel about it, what it really does for them. Maybe it solves a huge problem in their business and they're overjoyed about it. The stress is lifted. Maybe it releases some of their time and they get more time back in their personal life. And because of that, they're thrilled. That impact goes beyond dollars and cents. It goes beyond a cost basis. It's important to them. So you're going to talk about exactly what it is that you can do and then explore the impact. So how you go about doing that on a single call or on a single appointment is to say things like, here is exactly what we offer. Now, obviously, people offer different things, so I can't get into too many specifics on that. But I will say it doesn't matter if it's a product, a service, a professional offering of any kind. You can use this same strategy, this same approach, and it'll be just as powerful. Where people fall down and miss opportunities is when they don't think to include it this way. They think that people have automatically connected the dots. See, connecting the dots is important later on when you have to flip back and remind people. See, if you get to a point that you talk about, here's exactly what I can do. I can solve problem number 1 with this offering. I can solve problem number 2 with this component of my services. I can solve 3 and 4 together with this particular program or offering. When you get to that point, if you get any resistance, if you get any pushback that, well, I don't necessarily know if I really need this, you get to go back to connecting the dots. You got to go back to, well, you said that this was specifically one of the things that was a concern. And I mentioned it when I started talking to you. I just kind of reminded you about it. Like there was too many conversations about it for it not to be a real thing. It's important that you do that. But the reason why it's so critical that you explore impact is because at this point, when you're starting to actually show them a solution, your solution will have some price tag associated to it, right? Whether it's time or money or whatever it is, it's going to have a price tag. And when that price tag is affixed to that particular problem, people fixate on the price. They laser in on what the price is, right? They see that and they stop thinking about all the other things. They forget the component pieces of the dots that you connected, right? They forget those things. They're laser focused, like, oh my gosh. Okay. And here's how you need to position that. There's 2 ways of looking at your solution. And this is another thing that you can use on appointments and talk to people. You could say there's 2 ways of looking at this solution. Some people look at the solution, the price tag on the solution, as a problem. Like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. That's a problem. I don't have that. That's not in the budget. They look at it as a problem. Some people think that way. And the problem with that is sometimes they miss all of the hidden value and the greater impact. But what people do, what successful people do, they tend to look at those things as opportunities. See, the cost isn't really a cost, it's an opportunity to access all of this. It's an opportunity to access all of the value that you get. It's an opportunity to access the impact that the solution will have for the client. How powerful is that when you're talking to somebody and you say, I know it's $5,000. And you could look at this two ways. You could look at it as a problem, and it may be a problem, or you could look at it the way that a lot of successful people look at it. They look at it as an opportunity and they realize, wow, if I can put together this $5,000, it could lead to $50,000 or $500,000 for my business. That's an opportunity. If you look at it as a problem, I'll tell you that you'll come up with more and more reasons to not do it. And that is so true when people go to make decisions. If they look at the price tag as a problem, odds are they will more than likely come up with new and creative ways to talk themselves out of it. If they look at it as an opportunity, if they look at what it is that you're providing and that little price tag as an opportunity to get all of that and all the impact that comes with it, that's the person that you want to work with. That's the person that's going to be successful. And I'll tell you, when you're discussing this with your prospects, I have many times said to people, there are two types of people in the world. The type of person that looks at this price tag and says, ooh, that's going to be a problem. Odds are very high that that person is not somebody that'll work with me, for the simple reason that they don't look at the greater picture. The second type of person, and maybe this is you, looks at that as an opportunity because they see that that 5,000 is 50,000 over here, and they see that it could be 500,000 over there, and they see the greater impact. But all of these things only work in a condensed environment, in a one call situation, when you hit every single gate the right way. You know, and I've done this. I've helped train people in one call closes. I've helped train people in complex multiple stage closing opportunities. The process is the same. The only difference is the timeline. The only difference in it is what steps have you taken? See, I've seen people do a great job on a single call, miss one step, and miss the opportunity to win the business. And then they go back the next time and they do a poor job of getting that person back to that same place. And because of that, they don't get it the second time. And then they're wondering, am I wasting my time? Is it going to actually bear fruit? Am I going to have the opportunity to win this business? The fact is, if you skip a step, you're probably not going to get the outcome that you want. But if you stick with it and do it the right way, your odds dramatically swing in your favor. So when you look back over what it is that we're doing, we have a very methodical process to these things. If it seems like you don't have a time to do things the right way, then come up with another time. If you get into a call and your prospect talks with you, and somebody's probably thinking of this, if your prospect's talking to you and you realize that you're running out of time on the appointment, set the table for the next call and don't try to push and force what you do into a few minutes. It's too important to them and it's too important to you. And it's not a bad thing. It's just what it is. And just say, look, I'm so sorry. We don't have a lot of time left. Do you have a little bit more time? And if they don't, say, you know what I'd really like to do is I'd really like to take this information back and absorb it and come back with you again, where we have a little bit more time to discuss specifically how I can address those things. Because believe me, I can. But you're better off doing that and setting the table for the next step. And that's my last line item for today. It's called set the table. It doesn't matter what the situation is. It doesn't matter if it happens right there on that call. It doesn't matter if it happens later on in a follow-up appointment. You always want to set the table for what's next. What's next may be a follow-up call where you continue the conversation. And what's next is also getting them back to the same place that they were when you ended the first call, doing it the same way. Because if you don't, you're going to have a hard time winning them over if you don't take them on the same similar emotional journey, if there's not some of the same pain points described. Once again, though, why are dotting the I's so important? Connecting the dots. Why is that so important? Because connecting the dots accelerates that process later on. If you have to go to a secondary meeting, a third meeting, whatever it is, if you've done a good job of connecting the dots, it's easy to go back in another appointment and get back to that place. If you didn't do that, you're starting all over. So in the basis of wanting to make this as productive as possible, connect the dots. You set the table, even if that means you have the opportunity to do business with them today. If you have the opportunity to do business with them today, by all means, you should go for it. Put the offer in front of them, show them what it is that you offer, and allow them to decide what the right decision is for them. Now, depending upon how the person reacts to this, why do you think that I said that you should share with them that they don't get any pressure from you, whether or not you do or don't work with them? Because that wall naturally has been drawn down to here. Now, when you put the actual proposal in front of them and you say, so what do you think? Is this something that you feel could address these concerns the way I've described? Because from what you described, they were pretty serious and you wanted to do something about them right now. Would this address that for you? By getting them to agree to that and move that process forward, you now have set the table for them to make a decision. Now, when you told them that whether or not you did or didn't work together was the case, the wall was down here. But as soon as you put the proposal in front of them, the wall came up a little bit. It's just a natural thing. You have to understand it's normal. Don't worry about it. It's not uncommon at all for that to happen. But when it does, you need to casually talk it back down. Start pulling bricks out. How you do that? Go back to them knowing, liking, and trusting you. I know when you were telling me earlier, Mr. Prospect, that these were the top 4 concerns that you had for your business. You seemed very serious about all 4. And your description of the impact that it was having on your business and your family and your life was very real. Am I correct in that? Yes, you are. So based upon that, we talked about and we connected the dots of how those concerns were things that could be addressed by our core offerings. These 3 core offerings could address those 4 problems for you and not only solve them, but set you up on a much better trajectory. Do you see that from what we've proposed? Yes, I have. So let me ask you, based upon that, since you've seen that the need has been addressed and that we could solve those things, what would it take to get you to do something about it? Because is it the number? Are you looking at that as a problem or are you looking at that as an opportunity? And sometimes casually explaining it to people that way takes the pressure off of them because it doesn't force them to put a narrative about why they're hung up on it. They could say, yeah, Joe, I'm looking at it as a problem right now. I can understand that. Maybe I could help you work through it. Let's talk about it. What that looks like. Okay. So you can't really work on anything until they tell you exactly what the issue is. Is it really a problem? Is there some other issue? Is there some other reason they can't move forward? So you don't confuse 2 things. Sometimes people are willing, but not capable. Sometimes people are capable, but not willing. You need the proper balance of willingness to work with you and capability to afford your services to be able to do business with anybody. So you need to walk through those things in a way that positions you powerfully. Now, these are not the only ways to position you professionally and powerfully in a call or in an appointment. There's a few others, but I highlighted the ones that I think are the most impactful. And the reason is, whether you know it or not, in every interaction you have, every call, appointment, every Zoom call, every opportunity to interact with people, you have the opportunity to position yourself. You either position yourself forward, you stay where you are, or in some cases, you position yourself backwards. You get farther along in the process. And I hope through our time spent today that you would have pulled out some of these tips and used these tips to best position yourself both professionally and personally with the people that you interact with. Make sure that you go into these interactions professionally, that you share with people as much as you can in advance to take the pressure off of you and yourself by giving them information in advance of your meeting or call. You want to make sure that you make it all about them, earn their trust by letting them see that you're listening. Let them get to know you through your interaction with them and the degree by which you explain how you can connect the dots and solve their concerns. The trust will come by successfully accomplishing all of those things. See, trust does not have to be a long-term thing related to business. That trust can be earned in minutes. For some people, it only takes that. For others, it takes hours, some days, weeks, or even longer. But the fact is, the sooner you can address these points and get them out in front with your prospects, the more likely you are to be successful quicker. The more you are one call closes, single call closes that move forward. The fact is, it also does something else for you. It weeds out people that are just maybe kicking the tires and trying to learn a little bit more about what it is that you offer or do or provide. You know, if you start putting numbers in front of them and say, look, you could either look at this as a problem or an opportunity, you're going to call those people out sometimes. And that's okay. It'll save you time. But the most important thing that you can take away from today is to make sure that in all of your interactions, whether it's a phone call, an appointment, whether you're meeting them in person or virtually, make sure that you go into them professionally, positioning yourself in a way that sets you apart from other people. Remember what I said about distinguishing yourself, and you know, it's a little counterintuitive, but it makes you seem different than other people. And that in and of itself makes you memorable. It puts you in a position where they're going to remember who you are, more about what you've said, and be willing to work with you a little bit more. But ultimately, it comes down to how well you can do all of these things together. If you're struggling to do some of these things, if you, for whatever reason, get into these sales interactions and they aren't moving forward in a way that you'd like to see them move forward, I'd like to help. You can reach out to me personally on my digital business card by texting the word sales to the number 321-421-5213. That's sales to 321-421-5213. You can connect there. My social media is there, but there's also a link to schedule a complimentary impact sales strategy session, a free consultation. We'll dig into what's going on with your sales, low pressure completely. And it's your opportunity to get the help that you need to jumpstart sales in your business. I want to once again thank our host, Podcast EZ. They helped us create the Impact Sales podcast. It's been a game changer for us. It's gotten us visible. They put us on 38 different listening platforms. Any place that you can find your podcast, you're going to find the Impact Sales podcast. Spotify, Google, Apple, all the different podcast platforms has our platform. So definitely check us out there. And most importantly, take the time to invest in your craft, in your business, and make sure that you're doing things the right way to increase your likelihood for success. There's no doubt deep within each of you, you all have the opportunity to be wildly successful in sales. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be too hard. You can go out there and create dramatic success for yourself by figuring out how to power position yourself both in your initial calls and process. And it would be my pleasure to help you throughout that journey. Make sure that you check in with us each week here on Impact Sales Live. We're here every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. The upcoming weeks, we have some guests coming on. We're going to be talking about some success stories. We're going to be into more valuable content and sharing actionable insights that you can take and put to use for your success. Don't miss this opportunity to follow us, get more information, to keep building momentum for sales in your business. If you're a coach, an entrepreneur, a consultant, or you're just selling for another company and you want to figure out how to get better at what you do, reach out to us. We've cracked the code on selling. You do the same thing. This is Joe Beck, host of the Impact Sales Podcast from the Sales Activist here at Impact Sales Live, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.